Hey everyone, it's the end of the week, so it's time for the Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. I'm really excited to go through the list of movies that we watched this week, so let's get right to it. Last week I told you guys we were going to go see War of the Worlds from 1953 at the Hollywood Theater, which we did last Sunday, and it was fantastic. Highly recommend this movie if you've never seen it. It's incredible. The special effects for the time were just like totally unbelievable, and nobody could believe that anyone had done it. The story, I'm sure you guys know, Martian invasion happens. The scientists are trying to figure out how to defeat the Martians. They seem undefeatable. We spend a lot of the movie trying to blow them up or smother them with something or defeat them in any way, and they can't seem to figure out how. And then it just becomes this chaotic run for your life survival at the end of the movie. And at the very end of the movie, I'm going to go ahead and spoil it because this movie is from 1953, and I think you all know the ending of the movie. The Martian ships start crashing, and it turns out that they were vulnerable to Earth bacteria, and it's just the germs here that wound up killing them. So great movie, highly recommended, great performances from all the people who are in it. Like I said, great special effects for the time. The Martians, when they actually show them, do look a little bit cheesy, but if you get yourself into that, 1953 mindset, it's pretty fun to watch. At the very end of the movie, the Martian ship crashes and the door opens partway and the Martian's arm kind of falls out and then just stops moving. Our main character, who's a scientist from the university, has been going around trying to, defeat these Martians the whole time. And in the end, it winds up being bacteria that defeated them. But unfortunately, the one downside of this movie is right at the end, there's this like cheesy narrator voiceover who comes in and says, "Oh, it was God who defeated the Martians by creating bacteria for us." And we just all kind of went, huh? Like it literally felt just slapped on the top at the end, like some film board went along and was like, we need to have a little bit more Christianity in here and a little bit less science. So other than that, like one line at the end of the movie that just kind of makes you go, oh, what? Great movie. Highly, highly recommended. If you can see it on a giant screen like we were able to at the Hollywood Theater, go do it. It's so much fun to watch these older science fiction movies that have just great technical special effects for their time. Really, really fun. Also, the movie is produced by George Pal. If you don't know him, he did a lot of stop motion animation back in the day. I'm going to recommend the Puppetoon movie, which is all about his style of animation and the way that he did special effects for movies and his own animated shorts and longs. A lot of cool stuff from George Pal. Later that day, actually, Sean and I watched another movie from the 50s. After we went and saw that at the Hollywood, we came home and screened The Man with the Golden Arm from 1955, starring Frank Sinatra and Kim Novak, directed by Otto Preminger. If you guys have never seen that movie, highly recommend it. Sinatra plays a junkie who is just been released from prison, and he's trying to clean up his act. He wants to become a drummer in a band, but he keeps getting sort of gripped into his old seedy underworld lifestyle, and you get to watch him slip all the way back into that, really unfortunately. But there's this whole side plot where he has a wife who's disabled because of a car crash that he caused. And there's a lot going on there. It's a really, really, really amazing movie. We found it on the Criterion Collection, but I think it's also just available on Amazon streaming if you're willing to pay to rent it, which I am, $3, $4 to screen a great movie. That's the same price as it would be to go to a video rental place, and it's way cheaper than going to a movie theater. So, Man with the Golden Arm, fantastic movie. Sean and I actually came up with this really bizarre mashup after having watched War of the Worlds and Man with the Golden Arm in the same day, where we said, well, what if they were kind of smooshed together, and at the end of War of the Worlds, the alien arm had kind of flung out of the spaceship, and there was like a needle hanging out of it, and it wasn't that the bacteria on Earth was too much for the aliens, it was that the heroin on Earth was too much for the aliens. So, watch it with that sort of weird twist if you want to, but like I said, going to recommend both of those movies. Really, really great stuff from the 1950s. The next night, we actually, instead of watching one long film, it was Jimmy's pick, and he was so inspired by watching Jan Svankmajer's Alice last week that not only has he been making his own stop motion animations this week, but he went ahead and looked up all these different Jan Svankmajer shorts on YouTube and watched them by himself. And then when it was his pick for Cinema Club, he said, hey, can we just watch these shorts because I want to show them to everyone else. So we got to have kind of a mini Jan Svankmajer film festival curated by my youngest son, which was really, really fun. I'm going to go ahead and put a playlist down in the comments of what we were watching. Again, if you don't know his work, if you do know his work, you should check it out. But if you don't know his work, really strange, interesting, very creative stop motion animation from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, coming out of Eastern Europe, using a lot of just everyday objects, a lot of animated people also, which is really a cool technique that he uses. I recommend anything that the guy has made. It's all brilliant as far as I'm concerned, but obviously shorts are a really fun way to get into it and just kind of take some little bite-sized, 5-minute, 10-minute shorts and see what he's all about. So I'll put a link in the comments, like I said, and please do check that out. Let's see. I have to look at my notes. I can't remember everything we watched in a week. The next night after that, Jimmy asked for something scary, and I had a whole list of movies that I actually watched when Sean was in the hospital. I watched a bunch of movies just by myself, and I kind of can't remember them that well. I was just sort of passing time and trying to not think about the fact that my husband was in the hospital having just had a stroke. And I just sort of immersed myself in watching a lot of movies when I could. And so I've got this kind of list of movies that I know were good, but I kind of don't remember them all the way because I was a little, so I dug into that list and I pulled out The Taking of Deborah Logan from 2014. That is a found footage horror movie about, it's ostensibly about a documentary being made about a woman with Alzheimer's. But then as the story unfolds, we see that there is something much more sinister going on than that she just has Alzheimer's disease. And the only thing I remembered about it was the climactic shot, which if you've seen the movie, you're going to know the one I'm talking about, and that I had classified it as too scary in my mind. There were a couple of movies that I watched when Sean was in the hospital that like immediately after I turned it off, I was like, why did I watch that movie by myself? What is wrong with me? And this was one of them. So I revisited that with Sean and the kids the other night. We enjoyed it, 7.5, maybe 8 out of 10, but yeah, definitely very scary. Lots of really gross imagery, body horror stuff. Very effective use of found footage as well. Sometimes I find the found footage genre to be, Blair Witch is kind of the king of it, but it's like there's too much, like the screen is dark and everyone's just like running and it's scary and it's screaming and you can't see what's going on. So this one, because it was more like we're making a documentary about this kind of like semi-pro. The camera work felt semi-pro, and I appreciated that. It wasn't just all shaky cam all over the place. And the writing was pretty cool. The way the story unfolded, I like that a lot. And the performances from the main actresses were really, really great. So if you're into horror and you missed that one, go ahead and look up Taking of Deborah Logan. I think we screened it on Amazon, but I can't remember. Sorry. The next night after that, Sean and I were watching a movie by ourselves, and I wanted to kind of go the opposite direction from, horror or fantastical animation. And we decided to watch The Thin Blue Line, the Errol Morris documentary from 1988 about Randall Adams, who was wrongfully accused and found guilty and sentenced to the death penalty of a cop's murder in Texas. Errol Morris made this whole documentary about how he felt like that guy shouldn't be in jail because he really didn't do it. And after having served 12 years in jail for a crime he didn't commit, the guy was actually let go because of the documentary. So that's a pretty cool story. It's a really incredible documentary. It's kind of like the granddaddy of the modern true crime documentary. Errol Morris really pioneered a bunch of the techniques that other people then copied, such as the straight ahead interview where the person's talking directly into the camera. He actually developed a thing called the Interrotron, where he was using kind of like the same technology as a teleprompter, but instead of showing the person text to read, he actually had his face on there so they could talk to him, but they're also talking to the camera at the same time, which is pretty cool. He also was one of the first people to do reenactments of the crime scenes. And I can't remember what else, but if you look it up, it's a great documentary. It's really interesting the way it's put together. I don't think he even called it a documentary. I think he called it a nonfiction film. It sort of cuts between the interviews, the reenactments, shots of actual documents from the time, and then the whole thing has this really great score by Philip Glass. So it's very cool. I had seen a few of Morris's films before, Brief History of Time and Fast, Cheap, and Out of Control were the ones that I had seen before, but I was really inspired to watch The Thin Blue Line actually because I read his book, Believing is Seeing, which is a collection of essays about photography and how images captured in media make us think different things than we might normally have thought if we hadn't seen those images. So if you're interested in that concept, I highly recommend that book of essays. They're really good. He's a great writer. He's a great documentary filmmaker as well. So Thin Blue Line, very, very good. I think that was on Amazon, but I'm not positive. You guys can find it. You know how to find stuff. And then the last thing that we watched this week, I was so excited. It's Black History Month, as you guys know. I had been planning on screening Malcolm X for the kids just at home anyhow, but they played it yesterday at the Hollywood Theater on 70 millimeter, which was just feast for the eyes, here in Portland as part of the Portland Black Film Festival that's going on this month. So we got to take the kids to see it in the theater, which was amazing. I hadn't seen it in the theater since it came out. I went and saw it on opening day in 1992. I cut school and went to see it at the old Berkeley Theater in Berkeley. I think I was one of like 4 white people in the entire audience. It was incredible then. It's incredible now. Of course, seeing it in Portland was kind of like an opposite. I think there were like 4 black people in the entire audience, but whatever. This movie is for everybody. It's incredible. It's Spike Lee's best movie as far as I'm concerned. He does an incredible job. Denzel Washington is unbelievable as Malcolm X. I mean, he just becomes Malcolm. The whole story is incredible. If you don't know it, if you've never read the autobiography of Malcolm X, or for some reason you have limited knowledge of his life or the Nation of Islam, this is required viewing. If you do know about this stuff, it's highly recommended viewing. I think everyone should see this movie. I think it should be assigned in all schools in America. And if you don't go to school, please watch it anyhow. If you're a homeschooler, show it to your kids. It's just such an incredible story. He was such an incredible man, and Spike Lee really does his story justice in the way that he tells it in the movie. It's a really long movie. It's like 3.5 hours long. It doesn't feel like it when you're watching it, though. It's just incredible. I can't say enough good things about this movie. It felt very emotional watching it, even though I knew the whole story front to back, and I've seen the movie multiple times. It made me cry in a bunch of different places. Seeing it now as a parent, because the last time I watched it was before I had kids, the 2 different house fire scenes where the KKK comes and burns down his house and they have to escape with the kids were just, they really hit me hard. They were terrifying. I'm just going to keep sitting here saying, you guys all need to see this movie. Please, Malcolm X by Spike Lee. Even if you like think some weird stuff or like, oh, Malcolm X is the most horrible racist man ever to exist or whatever, like go watch the movie anyhow. It might teach you something different. It might help change your mind or let you know something else. You know, the other thing about watching this movie was, it was funny. I actually haven't missed living in Oakland since we moved. We moved to Oregon in 2004. But watching this movie made me miss living in Oakland. I miss seeing the black Muslims on the street. I miss having them sell the final call at the MacArthur BART station, you know, selling all their awesome baked goods at the the end of the freeway off-ramp off of 580 in Oakland. You don't see black Muslims walking around in Portland. What can I say? So it made me a little bit homesick. Yeah, fantastic movie. like I said, I can't say enough about it. I'm going to wrap it up here because I'm just kind of trailing off. But before I go, I do want to do one other thing, and that is invite you guys to tell me what movie you've been watching down in the comments. I'm always looking for more recommendations. Maybe you have a movie that I've never heard of. Maybe you want to remind me about a movie that I've seen but I haven't shown my kids or I haven't reviewed on here. Or just tell me what you're watching. I'm always curious about what other people are screening at their own chapter of Cinema Club. For us this week coming up, I'm hoping, again, fingers crossed, to go see 1917 in the theater. But, you know, that didn't work out so well last time, but maybe we can make it happen this week. But I guess you'll have to tune in next week to find out when we do our next Cinema Club Sunday Roundup. Thanks for watching. I'll check you guys out later.